Good morning. So today I would like to talk about the final project and teach you how to write a report or PPT file. And today we have only 2 hours because after 11 o'clock I will go to Taipei. We have a trade show, healthcare trade show, so I need to attend a trade show with the Intel. My lab cooperate with the Intel, so I need to be there. So today it's only 2 hours lectures. Okay. So we talk about the final project, and here show me you already select some paper. Most of paper are good, and I mark the blue color. Those paper you should change because those paper a little bit old or just regular paper. Not regular, just a simple one. Okay, so need to change if your paper is marketed by the blue color and the red color. I'm not sure. Probably it's okay. I'm not sure whether it's deep learning or not. So you should double check if it's a deep learning. It should be okay. I think it look like it is, but I'm not sure. But I don't know which conference or journal belong to for your paper because you did not write the conference or the journal. And we back to the first lecture. The first lecture, page 39. Okay. So the good conference in my field for this class, the good conference is the top one is the CVPR ICCV. Computer vision and pattern recognition, the top conference. I think it's about 10,000 people will attend this conference， 大概1万人吧。我那时候去参加的时候，大概只有2、3千人，那已经1998年，那现在大概1万人。那 CVPR is in the United States, and ICCV this also top conference international, so it will be held in different country, and this will be held once every 2 years. Okay. So after we have an ICCV and European, they have an ECCV. Okay. So CVPR, ICCV are top conference. Paper are very good. Okay. And ECCV is a little bit minor, but it's still good. Okay. And after European computer conference on computer vision, and later on we have Asian conference on computer vision. ACCV is a little bit minor compared with ECCV. Okay. Before we attend, I attend. We have a lot of paper on ACCV, and later on where I did not attend. The other top conference is NIPS. That's especially for the deep learning. CVPR, ICCV is not limited on the deep learning. NIPS is also top conference and more theory. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Those 3 are top conference. Okay. And ICML is okay. It's also good. Okay. And others are fine. And in my field for the robot, the top conference we call IROS. It's the International Conference on Intelligent Robots and the System. It's top conference. And others a little bit minor. For the top journal, there are many top journals. But remember, if you say my student always say, "Oh, professor, the paper is from IEE." No, IEE doesn't mean it's good. IEE has 1,000 of publications, okay? But IEE transactions transactions on that's a good journal. This here is journal. Okay, so transactions on something. That's a good journal. Okay, other is not really good one. So this you can reference some of them. So let's just tell you the good conference, the top conference, and the good journal. But that the journal is not only IEE. Some good journal are not IEE. And I use one example. And I already put in the FTP site you can download. So for example, this the paper is here. This is the paper. Okay. So this is suppose this is a paper, and you want to report this paper for your final project. So usually the paper is that we have abstract. So in my level, okay, I'm the professional. So when I read a paper, first of all, I read the title. I check the publisher, whether it's a top conference or not. But it doesn't mean some paper are not top conference or top journal, but they are also good paper. Okay, so it depends. And I also try to check the author because the famous professors, famous author, their paper quality is also very good. And then I check the abstract. After I check it's in my level. I check the abstract, and then what I see the figures. I check the table. So figure, table, equation are the most important for the good paper. So even though I review the paper, okay, I check the figures, I check the table, and I check the equation, try to understand the equation, and that's it. And I go through and see the format, whether the format is good or not, and see the title. So I go through this one, and I can decide whether this is a paper is good paper or not good paper. Okay, so in the other words, when you read a paper or you try to do the PPT for the paper, okay, I say again, figures, tables, and equations, both three topics are the most important one, and don't miss that one. Even though you don't understand, you still need to put on the PPT file. Some of my students sometimes they see the equations, they don't understand, and they skip it because they worry if they reported this equation and professor asks them and he doesn't know. No, you should put it on there. Sometimes professor doesn't know the equation also. Either. Okay, but those are important. Okay, so you gotta check this one. If those three topics are good, and I go through start to check the details. So title are important, also important, the title, this section title. So after I go through and we do the PPT, I go back to PPT. So the PPT, how can we do the PPT? This PPT is not, okay, this PPT is not when you go to talk. Okay, this PPT is for presentation of the papers or like a technical report. 我现在教你的这种 PPT 是适合报告的 PPT， 就是你要做报告的 PPT， 去公司做 presentation 的 PPT， 是技术报告 PPT， 不是演讲用的 PPT。So what's the PPT for the speak, for the talk? Usually is a lot of figures, less sentence. 就是你实际上在演讲的 PPT 通常是图案很多，字很少，就这样不用太多字。那是演讲用的 PPT，but for the paper PPT, you should have a more content. Okay, so we have a title here. So this paper is talking about the face include joint, include face detection and alignment. That's the landmark. And it's a multi-task is cascaded. So for the title, you can see the keywords on the title. They include detection, alignment. They include multi-task cascaded. So that's important. They try to let you know, okay, my paper include all the techniques. And the author are important. Okay? And this is a publisher. 就是那出版社 year 这很重要啊，因为我们可以判断，不是绝对，但是可以判断它到底是不是一篇好 paper， 值不值得看这样子。好，那这上我少写一个，应该是那个 conclusion 啊，那这个不是很重要了哈，这个that's so important here 啊，只会改。那我们开始从这边我教你哈。So the first section include motivation, objective, and the global framework. It should be global framework. So three issues for the introduction. So what's the motivation? Motivation is what's the application for this work? Why you want to do this kind of work? So motivation, 动机 is why this work, this research is important. And what's its application? Okay. So in this one, they say, oh, first, if you do the face detection and alignment, it means they have a mark here. A mark, the feature point here. So those work and do a lot of application, such for the face recognition, facial expression analysis, So that's motivation. Okay. And then second one is what's the objective? Objective is meaning what will you do in this paper? In this paper, what will you do? Or what kind of method you will apply to this work? Okay, so this one. And then you talk a little bit about what's the challenge. You solve the challenge. You solve the problems. Okay. And the third is global framework. You should let people have an idea your work. So this framework is simple, but important one is you should give people an idea. Okay. So for example, this framework is like this one. You have an image here. Usually the global framework for this one is for the inference, not for the training. So suppose you have an input image and they do the resize to the pyramid and they include 3 steps, P, R, O. So they call stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, for example. Okay. So first one, they apply PNet. They will detect a lot of one face because they have a pyramid, different scaling. So they detect different size of bounding box for the face. So and then the first step they try to do is fast, quickly to get a result. And then they remove some overlap, some redundancy bounding box called MMS. So it will reduce the bounding box. Okay. So they're fast, but still has problems. So the second step here, they try to reject the false candidate, 就是太多错误的把它去除掉， so and then do the refinement. So the second step, because right now you have a little bit less bounding box than the original one, and they can do the refinement, so-called R refinement, and then finally they get almost done for the result. Okay, and then the third step they try to do is try to find the feature point they call landmark. So 3 steps. So you give people an idea for your global framework. What is this research do? But here, you don't need to tell about the detail about technology. No, you don't need to talk about that one. The important thing is that input, method, what kind of method, just itemize, and output. So input, output, input, output, and final output. That's for global framework. Give people an idea and what kind of method, just call the name, what kind of method you will technology you will use. That's it. Okay. And 1.2 is the related work. But if you are like a first year master student, you don't read enough paper, so you can skip this one. Even though your report, you can skip this one, it's fine. Related work usually is here. So like this paper, the first one, this first one, this include motivation, objective, and after this one, from here, and you see the reference, they call related work. They start to talk about, oh, okay, in this issue, this motivation, so different people, they are already done for those kind of work, and they just try to tell people, explain people how other people do. So they this here. So up to the last, the introduction, the first paragraph is the motivation, okay, and second to almost the end, there's a related work. But I say in your case, you don't need to tell this one because they need to have a lot of experience. So, but if you are second year master student or PhD student, that's important because you need to read more paper. You need to understand many other methods. Okay. And the final one is your contribution. Okay, we back to here. So for the related work, sometimes you do comparison, compare different methods, and find their advantage and disadvantage. Okay, because of disadvantage, you want to solve those disadvantages using your method. So that's your contribution. So 1.3 is contribution, is that the work you contribute here, this paper, and you try to solve what kind of problems, and those problems are probably part from here, from others' work. You find the problems, you find a problem here, and then you try to solve it using your method. That's your contribution. So that's for your first section. When you study the paper, the same thing on the paper here. I just told you the paper, the introduction include this motivation, include related work. Some others people try to solve, they try to do this application, and then they do a lot of different works. But you need to analyze what's their advantage, what's their disadvantage, and then your solution, your final paragraph here is you see we propose what kind of method to solve those we call existing problems 存在的问题，你要解决的是这边 paper 的这样子，这是第一段。好，那 second one, the first one is what's your system? But if this paper doesn't talk about system, you don't need to write it. But like we do robots, a lot of paper has a system, so you write a system to put a system like where's the robot arm, where's the camera? We call system setup. Where do we put the camera, and how from the table to the camera? What's the height of the camera? What's the image resolution? Okay, where's the robot arm? Okay, so this is called system setup. And then after system setup, suppose I have a camera, I will tell what's the specification of the camera. 它的那个规格是什么 I suppose I write example is not, if this PPT file, I already put it on the FTP site, or you can download. If I write example, is meaning this one does not belong to this paper, just for your reference. So suppose I use a real sense camera, D435. Okay, I will tell you what's the specification, 对不对？它规格是什么 ？The specification 这样子，还有 resolution, pixel size, field of view, those are there. And the inside this one, they include the IR camera, IR projector, and two more camera. So there are 3 cameras. So we call this a specification. Okay, and this is a distance of the camera. If it's a more far away, the depth error will become, the depth sensibility will become this. Okay, so this is the specification. And sometimes we have a function like your user interface. You create user interface, and what kind of function you want to create for your contribution. That's a called function. OK， 规格跟功能的功能表啊，这当提供你参考，会通常是写在这里。好，这样大概系统讲完了。And then we start to talk about your algorithm because you are master or PhD students, you do the research. And research important is that what kind of algorithm you create. Okay, so for this paper, they have what's the training frame? Sorry, first of all, what's the system framework in test system? This one is different from global framework. Global framework, important one is you use one example, and this one is better. The example is for inference, not for the training. So what's the input, and for each step, output, what's the output, and next step, input, output. So step by step, and what's the important function for this step? 这每个步骤它主要做什么？像这个就 faster, refine, and then find the bounding box and the landmark. Okay, this is the step. But in chapter 3 here, we'll talk about more details about technology. In this lecture, we talk about deep learning. So here we'll start to focus on what's the deep learning framework for this paper. Okay, so first of all, we just the same briefly. We talk about the deep learning network. So they have a PNet, look like this way. RNet, look like this way. So this input is their output. The output become input, and the output. So this output become their input, and then output, and the final result. Okay, so this one is based on because we are doing focus on deep learning. So we'll talk about deep learning here. You should write more in details. And even though the image size, filter size, you should write here. Okay. So that's meaning if you write this one and I read yours, or you read by yourself, and then you will understand. Even though you do not do it, but you will look like you already do it. Okay. And then 3.1.1 become talk about how do you do the training. So you do the collect the data and do the before you input here. Here are the pre-processing. Pre-processing the data. Okay, even if like here they talk about their data ratio, include negative, positive, small parts, landmark. The ratio is like this one, and the data collection. So they talk about this one, and then there's a network. Sometimes the network is big, so if you use next page to write in detail about the network. Okay, and here more detail about the activation function. Okay, what kind of activation function you do? More details. So one page is not enough. You should write 2 pages. And here the loss function right here. Sometimes you loss function you do not need to write here because probably they don't have a space. We can write later on the loss function here. So I continue. So because there's 3 network. So we have P network. So we have 1/3, the second third, so 2/3 and 3/3. Okay, so 3 network, and that's for training. So training network is 3.1.1 and 3.1.2 is for your inference. But usually inference will look very similar to the training framework. That's fine. The only difference probably is only the loss function. Okay, but that's just for your reference. But in this example, you can see more detail like this one, right? Output, input. They also have an input. So there you have in the global framework, you cannot understand really details. However, in the section 3, you need to write exactly the detail about the relationship between each block. So they have output, and then here, and then also input to here. So become new input like this way. So you can understand more in details. And for each network, we already talked about that one here. So you don't need to repeat again. If you did not tell, you should write behind this one, write more in details. Suppose the non-maximal suppression, we did not talk on training, we talk about in inference. You should write either here or next page, more in details. In 3.1.3, this will talk about loss function. You should explain more details about loss function or the physical meaning of loss function. Loss function 物理意义，它的物理意义是什么？要去解释这个东西。好 ，so in the beginning of section 3.1, you give the training framework, inference framework, loss function, and then start from 3.2. Something, for example, if this one you did not explain well in details, you should start to talk about details. In here, start from 3.2. So they talk about, so I just, for example, I use the YOLO V4. So we'll talk about backbone here. So the backbone. And this one is more detail about here. Okay. So sometimes paper has this one. You should copy to here. Sometimes paper you don't have this one. You should try to find from the paper reference paper or the internet. So write more details here. So we have backbone. Okay. We have neck. Explain the neck. And then we explain the head. We have backbone, neck, head, something like that. So 3.2, 3, 4. And then more 5 is something we cannot tell. We continue to talk about more detail in the following sections. 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, something like that. So after this one, so chapter 3 is your methodology. If you write a thesis, I train my student exactly the same thing. So the same as the paper did. But because your thesis is more, have a more content. So sometimes chapter 3, chapter 4, also your contribution about your work. Sometimes 3, 4, 5, 3 chapters. So about your work. So after you talk about your work, and then next one is talk about the data. So the data, we first one, 4 point, because we start to, you already have a methodology, have a method. We try to collect the data. Okay, we try to do the experimental result. It's chapter 4. But if your method is a 4, 5, it will be chapter 5, chapter 3, 4, and this one be chapter 5. So we collect data. So we'll see how many data we have. They have a lot of labeling data, something like that. And sometimes they use table to explain your data collection. But here we have a face detection data and show people some examples. An important one is that the PPT show that, or even the paper or your thesis show that people have an idea what you talk about. Okay, and this is for the landmark. How do you mark those landmark? Okay. After this one, you have data collection, and 4.1.2 is what kind of method you will evaluate your performance. We call matrix. So that's the method. That's the equation. So in this example, we have precision, we have a recall, we have a F1 score. But you should explain a little bit about those meaning by equations. Okay, so you collect the data, and then you try to find precision, to find recall. So you should explain this one. So they call matrix. 你的评估方式就在这里，要把它写清楚。那这样完，you have data, you have a evaluation method, and then next one we'll start to do experimental result. 开始要做测试了，所以就开始评估你的 performance. When you try to evaluate your performance, you use either the figures or the table. The performance evaluation, we use either the figures or the table. In the figures, the important thing, be careful, is what's your x-axis and the unit. What is your y-axis? Even my student, they usually don't tell about this one. They just write the unit. No, you should explain a little bit what's your x-axis meaning or represent what's y-axis. 你 x 和 y 总要解释清楚。那另外学生还会犯一个毛病是 the other mistake student will do is that the unit is different here. Sometimes this unit, sometimes suppose 0.7 to 1. Here is probably 0.0 to 0.9, and the unit difference, and that will mislead people to do the comparison. So that be careful if you have to try to say the same thing. The x-axis unit and y-x unit should be the same. 就 x 和 y 轴单位要讲清楚，范围要讲清楚，不然人家会搞不清楚你要讲那个比会那误导人家这样子啊。Okay, so we have experience. So this experience one, they do the face detection. For example, it's got a result, they got recall, right? And this experience two is for the face alignment and different issue. 它有图表 equation 嘛，图表，我一直强调图表 equation 这三样。It's for table, okay? It's also for, and this is the compare their recall precision F1. Here they compare the time, 执行时间嘛，你执行时间多花多少时间执行这样子。Okay, so that's for your experimental result. And finally, what's your conclusion and future work? So in the back to the paper, back to here. See, they tell loss function first, but don't care about one. You just follow what I say. Okay. So finally, See, finally, they have a date in the. See, they talk about stuff in the third one. This paper, almost all the paper, introduction, right? Introduction. The second is methodology in your method. The third is the experience. But I told you, it's better is the first one is introduction. The second one is your system setup, your system. The people understand your system. So the third one is the methodology. And the fourth one is your experience, your data. So see there data. Okay. And then the fourth one include what's your performance evaluation. And then after the experimental result, the final is your conclusion and the future work here. Conclusion, future work. So the same. So conclusion, future work, and then your reference. Your reference. That's it. So that's for your report. 我教学生也是这样在教，那我觉得台湾好像都没有教你们这样子，那我用这门课来教你们如何写技术报告的东西，用 PPT。那你如果去像学生很多人去，你们像去联发科、去台积电，他们很多报告都大概是这样子。因为我从公司来，我当过高级主管，下面100多个 RD 的人，我们也是这样在跟我报告这样子。好，那这是基本上，这我已经放上去了。那你们的那个 final report is better use this kind of format。时间。有没有问题 ？Any question about this one？ 代替期末考的报告缴交日期。你看，期末考代替期末考的缴交不一样哦。This report is we have a this report. It's project report. But for the final exam, the due just final exam is just you just write more than 50 characters. That's easy. So that's I will tell you that one is easy. But this report you should spend time for this project report. OK， 那个期末报告我再跟你讲，那个才要缴超过50个字，那个还好啊。我现在还没有忘记期末考是哪一周了，就是期末考那一周写就好了。The final exam report only around 50 characters or 100 characters. That's the week of final exam. I forget which week. I will just let you know. But today, this one is for your project. So your project, you have 3 issues you need to do. One is the final report. The second one is you need to demonstration. Demonstration, and then upload your source code. So 3 things: the report, demonstration, and then you will upload your source code. 那没问题，我就先停止。